Thank you for joining us for session 2 of Artificial Intelligence for Small Businesses. I appreciate you all joining us. A little description like I gave you last time if you were here for last session. Mission West Community Development Partners was founded in 1995 as Lake County Community Development Corporation. We now do business as Mission West Community Development Partners, and we have essentially 4 different departments that make up the organization. So we have our Food and Agricultural Development Center that houses the Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center. That's a full shared use food processing and commercial kitchen. They also support a variety of food and agricultural based grants, and they work with businesses on product development, labeling, packaging, distribution. If it's food related, they will probably help with it. We have a cooperative development center that works like it sounds with cooperatives at all stages. And they also work with businesses that are converting into cooperatives. Some of their notable clients that they've worked with are the Ryan Cooperative Brewery here in Maine, Glacier Processing up in Columbia Falls. They're working with an investing cooperative over in Moscow, Idaho. So they have a pretty wide reach and are doing some pretty exciting work. We have our community development center, and they kind of are our bridge between all of the departments here at Mission West. And that's where our tourism grant sits that supports the Romanian Revitalization Project. And they have a few other projects that they're working on, including a Spring Creek Kitchen project that will hopefully be a part of the east wing of Mission West building here. And then we have our Business Development Center, and that's the department that's hosting this workshop today. So the Business Development Center works with small businesses of all types and provides support of, all varieties, HR related, technical assistance, AI, digital marketing, website management, business planning, financial projections, QuickBooks, kind of all of the things you would think of associated with a small business. We probably have support for it. And we also house a loan department here that provides small business loans and works with all of our local vendors to provide gap financing in a lot of different areas, and provides loans of all types to businesses. That's a little bit about Mission West. Now I'm going to turn it over to our presenter, Kyle Wright, who's back again for our second session here, and he is going to lead us further into our education and exploration of AI and crafting the perfect prompt. Go ahead, Kyle.
Right on. Thanks, Wes. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here today. I'm excited to dive into this. Something that I really genuinely believe this can change the way that you use AI in your business. So if you've ever tried using AI tools like ChatGPT, Cloud, or Gemini, and you've gotten a response that just kind of felt off, weird, generic, not quite what you were looking for, don't worry. It's probably not you. It's probably the way you asked AI. But today what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to fix that. This workshop is going to be all about learning how to craft the perfect prompt, how to talk to AI in a way that helps you get a clear, useful, and actually helpful response. By the end of the session, you'll know how to write prompts that get precise, high-quality answers, choose the right AI model for the job, and apply AI to real business use cases. And since this is going to be a little bit more of an interactive session, I encourage you to jump in, ask questions, and participate. The more engaged you are, the more that you'll get out of this workshop today. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about crafting the perfect prompt and why it matters. AI is an incredible tool, but it's only as good as the instructions that you give it. And if you've ever gotten that response like we said that was vague, kind of off, let's go ahead and kind of look into why that is the case. AI only asks or gives you what you ask for. So we need to make sure that we're asking it the right way. Have you ever seen the video where the dad is teaching his son about crafting, critical thinking, crafting questions and examples? He asks his son to write him instructions on how to prepare a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So dad says, okay, I'll make the peanut butter sandwich, but I'll only do exactly what you say. So the kid says, put the peanut butter on the bread. So dad slaps the whole jar unopened right on the bread. The kid laughs, realizes, makes a mistake, and they go through it. And there's a whole bunch of different steps as the kid understands that he has to explain all the way through exactly what it means. I think this is something that we do in ourselves all the time because we talk to people and we make these assumptions that they are going to make assumptions about what we're saying. But if you break down a list of instructions, you'll realize there's huge gaps in our thinking that we trust other people to know what we mean when we say, put the peanut butter on the bread, for example. We assume they know that you got to open the jar, grab the knife by one end, stick the knife into there, swirl in a certain motion, bring out an X amount of peanut butter. These are all kind of things we take for granted. But if you've ever had the joy or nightmare of writing code, you'll understand this is kind of like the same thing in there. Is the computer doesn't really know how to think. We're giving it instructions. This is where you'll see some of you may be familiar with it, this, then that technology or terminology. And that really is kind of the basis of, we can provide instructions to a non-thinking computer or machine, and that if this, then that approach goes all the way down. If I reach forward to grab a cup, then I reach around and grab it by the handle, then pick it up. Then the next step, if that's, then, or there's a reaction, or so on and so forth. Where we see a lot of ChatGPT and other computer programs that will respond in well feels like they actually know and understand what we're talking about. All right, is that a little easier to hear?
Can everyone hear me? Okay.
It's got a really bad echo.
What was that? Sorry.
You have a really bad echo?
We do have a bad echo.
It's
Just here?
Let's try it.
Just
Mine.
No, mine's muted. I think it might be coming out of the projector.
Whatever you did now, it's better.
Set back up a little bit here. And then does this go to mine, right? Instead?
You just continue.
Oh, it just isn't showing up on the projector?
It's okay. You showing this.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Everyone can hear him okay except Roxanne.
All right, how about now? We can hear just a little bit better, I think. So, all right, I think we're looking good then.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's see, where were we at? No worries. I mean, if nobody can hear that. Yeah, I think we were kind of discussing a little bit about how code and writing, and so giving context all the way down and explaining all the steps. We're dealing with a lot of programs that seem like they understand this better. Really what's happened is they've been given a series of instructions all the way down, every possible combination of different ways that you could ask a question. When I was building AI chatbots for a loan company a few years back, we would take, for example, if somebody wanted to come in and ask, all right, how do I get approved for a mortgage? Would be one of the most common questions that we got. Well, for AI to be able to recognize that, think of all the different possible ways somebody can ask, how do I get approved for a mortgage? Do I qualify for a mortgage? Am I qualified for a mortgage? Who is qualified for a mortgage? Who isn't? Like there's so many different variations all the way down. So what you've done is you've created a different scenario that goes, if somebody asks this question, you list out all the examples, then it gets this answer. And this is the output if it falls within these parameters. So creating parameters and then creating the output after you've caught the wide net is really how a lot of these programs are formed to understand what you need. So ChatGPT and AI is really no different. As we said, it's only going to give you exactly what you asked for. So today what we're going to dive a little bit deeper into is how to structure prompts for clear, useful responses. We're going to cover some of the differences between the three big ones, GPT, Claude, and Gemini. And then we're going to go through some live examples and some business-specific strategies so that by the end you will know how to make AI work for you. Okay, cool. So let's go to what actually makes a good prompt. Highest point is AI works best when it has context, structure, and constraints. So now that we know AI responds to exactly what we tell it to do, how do we make sure that we're telling it the right way? This is where prompt structure comes in. Can I think of it like writing a recipe? If you just say, make soup, You could end up with anything. But if you specify make chicken noodle soup with extra carrots, no salt, and under 30 minutes, you're probably going to get more of an example that's what you really want. There's 5 key elements that make up a good prompt or a great AI prompt. Be precise about what you want. You want context. Give AI enough background to work with, and then step-by-step instructions. You direct an AI like you would a brand new employee. There's role play prompting. Example, act as a marketing consultant, act as a small business expert, act as a small business owner. And then constraints and format. This is where it becomes helpful within word limits, structured outputs. I want a 3-paragraph email that is light, friendly, etc. These elements together, working together, will turn vague AI responses into useful, actionable content. So let's go ahead and look at some examples about seeing them in action. All right, so some example prompts. A well-crafted prompt makes all the difference. So here's how some small changes are going to lead to better results. Right, so on the top of these scenarios, we're going to have a bad prompt, something vague that doesn't give AI much to work with. And on the bottom, we're going to have a good prompt, one that includes more context, formatting, more specific examples. So for a marketing post, for example, we might be tempted to just put in something generic. We covered this a little bit last time, but something a little bit more generic, like write a marketing post for my business. If we do that, who knows what your business is? What could it be about? What's a marketing post even? What style do you want it in, etc. There's so many different variables to requests like these. However, you can get a little bit more specific. Act as a marketing expert. Write a social media post for a small bakery, launching a new chocolate croissant. Make it engaging and include a call to action. This is really still a very simple, small post. Is it cut enough?
Yeah, it's good.
So, as we said, act as a marketing expert, write a social media post for a small bakery, launching a new chocolate croissant, make it engaging, and include a call to action. This is still a really limited prompt to where I haven't given it much more than beyond just the basic details. I could go in depth onto everything that I wanted it to include. I could make sure that you're letting people know that we're brand new and that, we're excited in the community, or that we know Steve down the street, or literally whatever you want. But just by taking a few things, we've social media posts, not just a marketing post. We're going to make it specifically for social media. A step further might be one for Facebook, or one specifically for Instagram or TikTok, or whatever medium you were using it. Launching a new chocolate croissant. This gives you what you're doing, why you're trying to get people engaged. Make it engaging. And with a call to action. For those not familiar, a call to action is something that in the digital world, we are always trying to achieve. If you're just shouting something out into the air, hey, we have bread. That's great, but you're not asking anybody to engage. The ask or the is take action now, book now, look now, check it out, do the thing, come by, stay high, send me an email. These are all calls to action that encourage behavior and engagement. Because at the end of the day, if we're not, if our presence or our business isn't being engaged with, then nobody's buying. That's kind of the whole point. So, it can come up with all sorts of different ideas on that. Once you have that post, you get a good idea of what it is, you can take it and tweak it from there. Let's look at some other different examples that we have here. Maybe customer support. How do you respond to a customer complaint? Well, what are they complaining about? It could be anything. Customers complain about literally everything. I'm sure nobody here has ever had a customer that's ever complained about anything in their own business, but I hear it happens sometimes. So a different example of a better way to craft a prompt is you are a customer support representative. Write a polite and empathetic email response to a customer who received a damaged product. Offer a replacement and free shipping. Once again, you've given it context. You've given it exactly what you needed to. You've provided the scenario so that it knows. We're ChatGPT, just like other human beings, it cannot read your mind. It can only output based on the information that you give it. A third one could be write a sales email. Write an email about my sale versus act as an email copywriter. Write a promotional email for a boutique offering 20% off of a spring collection item. Use a friendly tone and include a clear subject line. It's giving you everything what's in it that you need. Now, this is sometimes it may be difficult to come up with some of these prompts. You may not have ever thought about acting as an email copywriter, or you may not be sure what your promotion is. And so, as we talked about last time, asking ChatGPT or any AI to do everything for you is, like I said, we discussed it being a tool in your hand rather than the actual creator. So, there are still ways, though, that you can utilize it to help you get through this. You just can't have it do everything for me. But if you take a more of a structured approach, let's say before we knew what our promotional was, maybe you could have, act as a think tank or something and help me come up with 5 ideas for my business or promotions that will drive customer support or that will drive sales to my small business in 2025. In the first quarter, in the fall, as I'm launching X. And then it could list out some things, and you can take get some of its ideas, and then use that additional prompt. So multi-steps along the way down to help you get there. But once again, write an email about myself. It'll write you an email. Just who knows what it's going to be about, and it will be so generic that it probably won't do much good. I'll get into these last 2. Long-form content. Long-form content, for those that aren't familiar, these are going to be more of your blog posts. This is going to be copy for your website that we talked about. Maybe you have an opinion article that you want to write to Dear Abby or something like that. Let's take a look at some examples here. We've got write a blog post about networking. People will absolutely write you a blog post about networking. It'll give out a whole long one about networking, and it's going to make its own determinations, like we talked about last time about how ChatGPT and AIs work about predicting the next word. So it's probably going to be something that is the most common thing that people talk about networking. It's going to just take a generic overview version of some of the most, the basic principles. It's important to network because all the general reasons that you would expect. Great for kind of an intro 101. But if you're looking for a blog post on this, you're probably looking for something specific. So here's a different example. Act as a small business coach. Write a 700-word blog post on how business owners can build strategic partnerships within their community, including examples like cross-promotions with local farms, collaborating on events, and leveraging local chambers of commerce for growth. Once again, here this might be a little bit more specific to, fill in your own details on what you want it to do, who you're working with, give it examples, ideas, and so on and so forth. And then structured output. This is going to be kind of everything else when you want it to come up with ideas. Hey, I want you to brainstorm, or I want you to help me meal plan, or I want you to help me whatever. Most of the time, these structured outputs, we're expecting some kind of result. Whether we're expecting it to respond as our friend, maybe as an expert in the field. It could be a therapist. It could be anything. There's so many different things that people use AI for. So you want information about something. You can see you're using it as Google. Instead of going and typing Google, and you'd be like, hey, what's the difference on social media platforms? And you go through all the different Google things. You're using GPT to do some research. So instead of just telling me about the different social media platforms, because it'll tell you what they are and the basic levels, but there's a question behind your question if you're asking something like this. So you might say, act as a social media strategist, create a comparison table of Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, including key factors like audience type, content style, and best use cases for small business. It's going to give it more information about what you're actually looking for. And then that's for you get a better response. Now, with these crafting of responses, it's going to take time to build up the ability to actually, write good prompts as you continue to learn and grow and get better at it all the time. One of the cheat codes that I use, and in fact, I did not personally write any of these. ChatGPT wrote all these, which in using it for this workshop that we're doing, it was explaining to what I was doing. ChatGPT helped me write this whole presentation on itself. So it kind of knows a couple things, but it came up with all these experts. ChatGPT is one of the best prompt crafters out there. And so a couple of these, for example, how I got the long form, I had a couple of different ideas, and I communicated to ChatGPT what I was expecting and what I was trying to achieve. Hey, ChatGPT, I'm running a small business workshop, and it's familiar with everything that we did in part one. I would like a good, relevant example of a good prompt that will help people understand some of your capabilities and so on. What would be some good ideas, content that we could use, which is why we came up about networking, and then give me 3 different prompt examples that you might use to be able to show your range, and I can really wow my audience. Knowing what I needed and what I was expecting, it gave me a specific output as an example. You can use this same style of thing. If you just even get a list, hey, help me craft a prompt, and at the end of the day, I want it to have X, Y, Z, and Q. It's going to know how to write the prompt in order to help you get that exact result. All right, so now that we've seen what works and what does work, let's talk about a few of the things that don't. So these are some of the kind of the common mistakes. So mistakes happen, and when it comes to AI, small mistakes in how we phrase prompts can actually lead to huge differences in the response. So let's go through some of the common mistakes and then how to fix them. And this might be a little bit harder to read. I got a little bit of smaller fonts. So the number one mistake that we see are what we've been looking at so far. Vague inputs equals generic responses. Bad one. Write me a product description. Just as we said before, you can write anything, but it doesn't know what it wants to be or what you're talking about. So the correct way to fix would be act as a retail expert. Write a compelling product description for a handmade leather wallet emphasizing craftsmanship and durability. Once again, you probably know exactly what you want the messaging to be. You probably know a whole bunch of things about your product. And if you're coming to ChatGPT for a product description, then you're probably needing help taking everything that's up here in a way that sounds presentable. You could describe your leather wallets all day long till the cows come home, but maybe we lack the ability to make them sound exciting or rural or local or whatever tone or kind of effect that we're going for. And so that's where you can explain what you're looking for, or even give an example to ChatGPT. Hey, I really like this product description here. I would like to, emulate or mirror what they're doing here to achieve something similar. Now, we're going to get into feeding content to ChatGPT to kind of mirror tone and voice and brand a little bit later. So hold on that. But secondary mistake that people make is trying to make too many requests at once. So the bad prompt might be, give me 5 blog topics, then write one, summarize it, and make a social media post. There's a lot of different steps. And while it seems like just 3-level things, there's a whole bunch of steps that go into the reasoning of GPT on that. So a fix might be break it into separate prompts. Give me 5 blog topics first, and then go on and refine from there. The AIs have the ability to remember what's being said all the way through, and they can track what you're saying. So each conversation you pop open is not a completely brand new experience. But one step at a time, if you can guide it, that way it's not confusing your intent. So right off the bat, giving it any 5 top blog topic ideas in the form of farming or whatever. Then you can figure out from there, all right, great, I've chosen this one based on, this one topic. Let's write it, and then I'd like let's summarize it. Each prompt is kind of its own set of instructions so that we're not overwhelming or things that are getting slipped between the cracks. Another mistake people make is no context can lead to wrong assumptions. That might, like I said, write a sales email. Well, it might assume that you're selling something to a different audience. It might create a sales email from one business to another, or when you're trying to act as a small business to a consumer. Those are going to be 2 entirely different styles of email. So the fix might be act as an email marketer or as a small business professional or whatever. And write a promotional email for a local farm offering CSA subscriptions for fresh produce. Again, context and vague inputs. You must give it the information so it knows where you're coming from and also setting expectations for what you are looking for. Then the last one is kind of a little bit out in left field, and it's not something that I would say is super common for people to do. Unless you're some kind of AI junkie like I am, and you just have a lot of fun in your spare time as Audie, coming up with random prompts and kind of pushing the boundaries of what ChatGPT can do. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, kind of have some fun with it. The bad one might just be to assume all AI models respond the same way. And that is absolutely not correct. We're going to jump into that a little bit further in one of the next slides after we have a little Q&A here. You would be surprised at how different they all can be. All of the different language models, while they hypothetically all operate the same way, they're all trained on different data. And that's what makes them unique. Just like we are in our own experience, those are familiar with the nature versus nurture concept. There's a lot of, this is who I am, my personality and so forth, but how much is that dictated based on my inherent characteristics of my personality versus my experiences and what shaped me? I might have a completely different outlook on life than if I were to have a twin who was raised somewhere else and had a completely different lifestyle coming up. So it are the AI models. They might have been trained on completely different information. If we had one AI model that had only ever been given fantasy books, and been trained on exclusively Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and so on and so forth. And then we have another one that has literally only been trained on historical nonfiction. As you can imagine, their responses and their understanding of the world is going to be completely different. And when we say understanding, once again, we're not talking about understanding, we're talking about its source material that it can provide as an output. So the things would be, try them all out, especially these day and age. We use Gemini, Cloud, and ChatGPT all for free. They're basic models, and their basic models are way more advanced than the paid models from a year ago. ChatGPT, they are coming up with new models all the time, and you would not believe just how fast we're making strides in this. So try them all out, see what some of the differences are. Right. So I think this would be a good time to kind of pause for any kind of questions that people have, some good ideas. I'd love to hear if some of people's experiences, if they have any kind of time that maybe they wrote a bad prompt or something that works for them, or questions about writing good prompts and some of the differences.
Can I ask a question?
Hello, Valerie.
Hi. So I did my homework. I had never touched an AI until last week, and I did all kinds of stuff. But one of the questions I'd asked, secret, keeping your finances secret is an inappropriate question. And so after he deleted the question, I said, well, I wasn't trying to be secret. I heard that you could do it, and I wanted to know what it meant. And then AI opened up, and it was Chat GPT is the one I used, and became a wealth of information. And then just this morning, I just threw a warranty letter at him, and he goes, let me give you a little more polished version of that. So that was pretty fun.
Perfect example. Valerie, thank you for sharing that, because first off, I really liked how I could hear the wheels turning. I've never touched AI, but then all of a sudden, once you start engaging with it, you're going, wow, I never thought to try that out. Well, look what it can do to that. You don't know what you don't know when you turn the stuff. And this is something I hear all the time of, it's way easy to get down the rabbit hole and you start exploring. And it really is interesting how almost lifelike it tends to be. But using that, for example, of being able to have it double check an email for you, it gives you a little bit more of a polished version. That's a great way to go, because, you've given it all the context right there within your email. Some advanced ways to do that is that, I would like this email to sound as if I am a business professional, or who knows, maybe you want something quirky, maybe like, I would like this email to sound like it was written by Yoda from Star Wars. Actually had fun having ChatGPT explain string theory to somebody as if they were Yoda. And it was very, it was fun, but it also was very comprehensive. And I've got some other kind of bits like that here that we'll kind of go through again. But Valerie, that's awesome that it was able to give you that polished version. And I wanted to ask you, were you happy with its tweaks that it made?
Very happy because it literally took home my information almost word for word and rearranged the sentences. Once in a while, it would change a specific word into something a little more comprehensive without losing the meaning. But it was, yeah, we used it. And I didn't even ask it anything. All I did was copy and pasted it in there and clicked entered. And when it showed up, he said, oh, here, let me go. And so I didn't even, for that one, I didn't have to use a prompt, but my other ones I did. So one of the questions that I asked it was, so what reasons do I have for being able to fly first class for a business and have it be able to come off my taxes? And pages of information or there were lots of things I didn't know anything about. And so I said, tell me about whatever it was. I don't know anything about it. And I opened up and I got pages. And it became very fun. And I named him George. And then the next day there was no George. And I'm like, okay, so this is like, I don't know, maybe every internet in the world here has the same AI. It's not the same. So I didn't get the same AI apparently as the day before.
That's a really interesting part that you bring up there. That's something that we're going to be covering, not exclusively, but really heavily into in part 3 next week. So you named yours George. Personally, I named mine Waze. I actually had ChatGPT come up with its own name, and it really liked calling itself Wayfinder. And so we came up with this kind of shortened version on it, and so it refers to itself as Waze the Wayfinder. We need little bits like that. So in part 3 of the workshop, we're going to be talking about customizing your ChatGPT and training its memory so that it really understands what your expectations are, because there's so many different ways to bolster that and let's say customize your ChatGPT so that George has a consistency over time. But the way that you're approaching these kind of things is exactly the kind of thing that I enjoy seeing, and it's why we like to offer these up, because in a world where there's so many different ways to utilize your GPT, is the ways that it's going to be able to be used most effectively is by doing it the way that will make the most sense and have the most fun to you. So, and with things like email prompting, that's kind of one of the things that I think is most common what people do is rewrite this email for me. It's gotten to the point now where if you've got an iPhone and it has the latest, if you're typing up a text message to somebody, there's you can highlight, hit writing tools, and then it pops up this whole AI section here that you may or may not be able to see. You can have it proofread, rewrite, friendly, professional, concise, summary key points list. It gives you this whole little ChatGPT section in Apple right now where it'll reformat and rewrite all of your content based on just some quick friendly, professional, or concise. These are your tones. There's some formatting, and then you're also looking for a proofread or a rewrite. So that is one of the most common ways that ChatGPT and AIs are used these days is for rewriting content. So awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that experience. That was that's exactly what we like to hear, and I'm excited to hear as you continue to further your relationship with George, so to speak, and how we can get him a little bit more advanced.
Yeah. Well, I asked him, so can you see me through my screen without my camera? He said no. You're telling me the truth? I said yes.
Yes, so far we have some interesting leaps and bounds that are starting to happen with I don't know if people have seen on some of the newer phones. There's this concept called Apple Lens, where if you hold down the button here, I can record kind of the world in real time, and it's going to show this video into the database, and then it's going, depending on what I need it to do. So we're starting to explore a little bit more of the visual interaction with the world. We haven't got to the real-time applications of it just yet. But as far as we know, no ChatGPT does, or the AI models do not have the ability to see you. That would also imply that there was just one brain with eyeballs and the thing. And so thinking about intelligence different than humans is definitely a big part of it. So,
Thank you.
Lily, thank you for participating. We appreciate it. All right. So let's talk about the big three. Not all AI is created equal. Just like different employees have different skills, different AI models specialize in different things. So we're going to break these down a little bit. First off, there's ChatGPT. It's made by OpenAI and is owned by Microsoft. You see ChatGPT most often, actually pretty much everywhere nowadays. It's ingrained in some of the Apple products. If you use Bing, you'll see it there. Bing pretty much uses it, but Microsoft ended up, for all intents and purposes, purchasing this and are pumping money into it all the time. ChatGPT is, and now there's a bunch of the different models that are used for different things within it, but we're just kind of talking overall. Overall, its strengths. It's good at creative writing, structured response, and coding assistance. What it's absolutely best for is marketing, customer service responses, automation workflows, things like that. His ability to kind of take something that's structured, break it down, and kind of explain it. More of that. It's like your intellectual friend, is I would say. Secondary, one of the most popular ones, we have Claude, or Cloud, depending on how you say it. And that is by a company called Anthropic. Its strengths are reasoning, summarization, and it also has a much better memory of your conversations. Once again, we'll talk about your memory and customizing your GPT in our next workshop. We'll get a little hands into it. But Claude is really honestly best for long-form content, policy analysis, and research-heavy tasks. Now, that being said, some of the new research models by ChatGPT are kind of giving it a run for its money, and so this answer could change tomorrow. It changed last week, so it changes all the time. And that's the speed in which these different models are competing against each other all the time. And when I say long-form content, this is a good way to describe it is if we asked both of these two or all three of them for a marketing post or whatever. There's an example here that we can do that we'll talk about it, but ChatGPT is going to more structured posts that'll hit all the things that you want. It's going to make sure that it's, talking about the post and here's the details, and it's going to be structured well, and it's got all those things taken care of. It's, what a good post should be, but it won't really feel human. Claude's going to come in and make it feel a little bit more engaging. It's going to be a little bit more fun. Hey, but it really is going to look more like, a human wrote it with more human expressions and vibrancy and kind of a little bit more of that pop and color to it. Then we got Gemini by Google. And its strengths are multimodal text, image data, things that are connected to Google search. It's also best for fact-checking, trend analysis, and real-world application. Which really makes sense because as Gemini's plugged into Google, the search engine, it's got more of a finger on the pulse of what people are engaging on. So let's say this one's GPT's a little bit more hypothetical, Cloud's a little bit more kind of a try-hard, and Gemini is pretty good at being like, hey, this is kind of like what the actual trends are. And Gemini is going to kind of be a little bit more of your popular kid. They know what's up. The younger kid, your Gen Z or whoever they are these days. So with that same example, Gemini might not have the best structure, and it may not have the really poppy-friendly tone, but it's going to be the one that looks most like what somebody's actually posting these days because that's kind of its whole model. If, the trends are this, or this stuff's really popular right now, that's where Gemini is going to come in and try and mirror the trend. So that's really kind of like, if you're writing a blog post, GPT might be the best choice. If you need deep reasoning or a summarization, Claude is strong. If I wrote an article and it didn't want to just talk about like, here's, if we gave it some kind of political piece article, ChatGPT might talk about the hypothetical nature of the politics. It might give you a better understanding or kind of a why approach. And then Gemini is going to be more real checking, like, this is true, this is what's happening right now, helping you kind of it's probably going to be the best one at fact checking it and data. Whereas, like I said before in the last one, you can really convince ChatGPT or Cloud of anything, because it wants to agree with you. It doesn't really care about being truthful or correct. It just cares about what's the most likely next one coming up. So testing your prompt across some of the different multiple models can really help you get the best output. So all that being said, let's go through some of the top prompt ideas. I've collected a list of 12. These are kind of some of my favorite hacks, tips, tricks, and about 12 minutes. Let's run this really quick here. These are some of the best cheat codes, if you will, to help you get to start a prompt with conversation. If you want to learn something different. So we'll just kind of run through these pretty quick. My favorite one, and anybody that's ever been on Reddit has probably seen this. Explain like I'm 5. What this really is a great way to understand it. Like I said, string theory, complex, concepts. Let's say you were taking a college course and something they started talking about the history of so-and-so, and you get this huge big one, feed it to, check, you go, hey, explain the theory of relativity to me, or whatever, like I'm 5. And it's going to really kind of, I can use words dumb it down, but it's going to put it into a really concise, simple way. I think we have all, hey, explain simply for me. So Blake breaks down complex concepts simply. Number 2 that I like is give me a step-by-step explanation. What this does is it clarifies complex ideas methodically, kind of giving a breakdown, bulleted kind of step-by-step approach rather than just a long-form content. It all kind of depends on how we like to digest information. Number 3, summarize in one clear sentence. This allows or takes a whole big concept and allows it to be succinct. I like to do this one to be able to help me explain concepts to people, as I'm somebody that enjoys potentially over-explaining, long-winded explanations, comprehensive understanding why. If I can get a one-sentence summarization to convey an idea, it's something that ChatGPT is really good at. This is another one of my favorites we saw before. Act as an expert in specific role. Improves contextual relevance and depth. If I write a blog post, if I want to sound like, we're going to write a blog post about that's your opinion on vaccines, like a hot topic, for example. You might act as an expert or as a doctor. You may act as a congressperson or anything in between in these day and ages that would, as you can tell, they would be completely, totally different tones, context, exactly what it would be, its arguments, etc. Number 5, what common mistakes should I make in avoiding, what common mistakes should I avoid when blank? This is going to be where ChatGPT or is going to come up with some of the most common, calls. Hey, make sure you watch out for this, or most business owners fail. We've seen those headlines like top 5 tricks that insurance companies say, clickbait, whatever. But like those kind of style of thinking about how, hey, what should I avoid? Explain the difference between X and Y helps clarify confusing concepts. Simple. Tell me what I might be missing about blank. This identifies blind spots and challenges assumptions. When using this one, I like to give it my perception about, I like to explain to ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, I'm working through this theory, and this is my understanding of it so far. Blah, 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 blah. In my own words, I just summarize how I feel about it, what I think about it, and then I say, tell me what I might be missing from this, or point out any flaws in my logic, or act as a critic or a naysayer. Number 8, give me an example from different industries. Broadens perspective, sparks creativity. That blog post might be different between farming and anything else. Number 9, explain it like you're teaching somebody new to the job. This ensures simple, practical, actionable insights. Number 10 is one of my favorite. Break it down into bullet points. I love bullet points. They are one of my favorite ways to understand things just in a good way that it's broken down. Explain why this matters. Number 11, this connects ideas to deeper relevance. And then number 12 is a fun one. Pretend I'm skeptical. Convince me. It's going to strengthen arguments and address doubts practically. Engage in the debate with me and take the opinion opposite. Always act as the devil's advocate. Things like that is going to be a way to force ChatGPT into a corner where it's going to argue intelligently against you and force you to defend your position, but then also to understand things from the other side, which I think these days we can all agree is probably a pretty useful thing regardless. So, we've got about 8 minutes left. So, what I wanted to do for the last one here is I want to engage a little prompt showdown. So what I wanted to do is take one prompt and I wanted to do a kind of a live scenario where we tested it across all three of the models. We've got a couple of ideas that I've got in my back pocket, but I thought this might be where it's fun to hear an idea from the group or anybody, either of you two guys. If there's one prompt, we're gonna come up with just one prompt, and we're gonna paste that same prompt into all three and compare their results. So who wants to be brave and come up with an idea? Taylor.
As a economic developer, structure a full template to bring to a steering committee.
Oh, all right. I'm gonna pop this into all three and then to submit. All right. Can't see this real quick. I'm just pasting this into all three of them. All right. So on our far left over here, we've got Gemini. It's gonna give it a start. In the middle, we've got Claude, and then on the far right, we've got ChatGPT. All right, so Gemini said, absolutely, let's craft a proposal. And he gave a executive summary, 1 to 2 pages here, current situation, describe the thing. He kind of breaks it down, pages here, kind of gives it a little bit at the end here. And then we'll look at this one. We've got Claude in the middle has created an actual budget template for us. It's actually got a table here, some ideas for a spreadsheet. It even gives a formatted submitted by date, it looks more like a contracted example that you can copy and paste. Same thing here now on ChatGPT, as we can see, it's kind of formatted a little bit more. It's got placeholders for everything. This is almost writing you out a template that you could go in here and fill out with some of the bullet point questions. So once again, as we look before to Gemini's going, hey, this is kind of talking about what if I just more, talking about some of the strengths, things that you're going to want to include when you build or help to build yours. Cloud tried to do it for you, and ChatGPT gave you a baseline with good formatting, allowing you to take it and move from there in this example. So as we can see right there, same exact prompt, we got 3 totally different styles. This is where you're going to want. Honestly, I run stuff back and forth all the time. I'll take a whole business plan or a summary or a presentation like this, and I have ChatGPT go. I throw it into Cloud, and I say, hey, ChatGPT wrote this for me. Let's make it a little bit more personal. Let's put your spin on it. And I get a little bit more of a human sounding one. I take that and I throw it back into GPT and I say, hey, use this as our scripting, but help me put this in a concise format. So it uses Cloud's words in its outline. All different ways that we can play around with all those. So that's what I would recommend that everybody does. That's everybody's homework, because we got last minute here. I want you to take one prompt that you're currently using, or try out a new prompt if you haven't already, in your business and improve it using today's best practices. Test it in at least 2 models and then analyze the results. It would be really fun if next week everybody had a favorite AI that they like to use. Like I said, I'm a big fan of ChatGPT. However, I do like to use Cloud for a lot of language and wording and so on and so forth, but I really don't get along with Gemini all that. And that's my own personal preference. Yeah, go from there. And then if you have any questions to close things out here, we covered how to craft to get better AI responses. But next time we're going to be going a little bit further. We're going to be customizing more advanced memory settings, how to train your AI better to understand your needs. We're going to be customizing AI outputs, deeper brand consistency using memory and context for personalized settings, and setting up specific custom GPTs to handle specific tasks for you. So, in the meantime, questions or feedback on your prompt refinements or anything else like that, feel free to send me an email at kyle@celticwinter.com. I'd love to hear how you're using AI. I want to hear your success stories, or even if you want me to review your prompts or have any little feedback for them, I'm always happy to do that as well.
So if nobody has any questions right now, like Kyle said, feel free to reach out to him. You can send questions to myself or Taylor, or really anyone at Mission West, and we can get them to Kyle if you lose his email or anything. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the workshop, this session was recorded, so if you know of anyone that would benefit from watching this, or you'd like to watch it again, just have them reach out to us and we can get you that recording. Otherwise, we hope to see you all next week, and I will send out another survey for this session. I think we refined that down a little bit on Jotform, and we would love to hear your feedback. It just helps us continue to improve our workshops in the future. So they're 100% anonymous. And like I said, we just want to hear your honest feedback and make sure we're providing something beneficial for you all. But thank you, and we will see you next week.